Hello, I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large, and welcome to Money Talks. This is a podcast about money, but we're not going to tell you how to get rich, and we're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. In this series, I talk to interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned about it over the years. For today's podcast, I'm joined by chef and host of TV's Eat Well for Less NZ, Mike Van de Elzen. Kia ora, Michael. Welcome to Money Talks.
Thank you. Morning.
Yeah, look, I was trying to avoid calling you a celebrity chef because I thought that might be a bit annoying. Does that label?
It does, actually. You must have read my mind because, yes, quite often I'm a celebrity chef, and it's always a term that I've never felt comfortable with. I'm a chef that I'm on TV. Yeah. It doesn't make me a celebrity chef.
Yeah, you don't feel like whatever a celebrity's supposed to be.
God knows. I've always been a chef, and I'll always be a chef. I just happen to be on TV.
One of the things we've been asking guests this season is, how would you explain what you do to a child?
Well, I could kind of think of my kids, and they do wonder what I do sometimes because I'm always doing so many things. I'm kind of juggling many a job during the day. So I'm a trained chef, but now 37 years later, I'm also a farmer and I'm also on TV. So I've put myself into probably three of the hardest industries, being hospo, farming, and hospo all in once.
yeah, just for a bit of extra challenge. I'll talk a little bit about Eat Well for Less, and we can talk more about this later, but, you know, it recently started airing its 5th season. It's been a crazy 5 years when you think about starting with COVID, and one of the features, you know, from my point of view, looking at the economics and all that, is that cost of living crisis through it all, and we've seen again this year, you know, food prices spiking up, especially dairy and meat. Does that add a bit of extra weight to what you're trying to achieve with that show?
I think it certainly puts a little bit of extra pressure onto us because the savings are not there, I guess, like they used to be. We used to be able to swap ingredients out or swap particular items out for cheaper brands, and there would be a true saving at the end of it, where now it might be, and you'll save yourself 30 cents.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, is that all? So we need to find our savings now in other ways. And a lot of that is coming through actually preparing a lot of this stuff yourself.
Starting with more raw ingredients and basic ingredients.
Totally. Yeah. Actually building dishes up from scratch.
Sure. Well, I'll come back to a bit of that, but if we can go back to your early life and how you found your way to this career. From what I read, you grew up in Henderson on a chicken farm. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Henderson Valley. My parents immigrated over from Holland in 67, I think they came over, or 65. My eldest sister, my middle sister, and myself were all brought up on a poultry farm in Henderson, and it was a great upbringing, being brought up on a poultry farm. But the other side of things was that mum and dad didn't need staff in the weekends because they had children.
Yeah.
And we found ourselves, working a lot. And we enjoyed it. Well, most of it. Shoveling chicken manure wasn't so much fun all the time, but we enjoyed it. And for me, being brought up on a farm, it's kind of instilled a pretty hard working ethic into me.
Yeah. Was that where the pocket money came from as a kid?
Totally. It was funny. The arrangement was I would, myself and my other sister, Monique, we would bag chicken manure.
Right, yeah.
And we would pay for the bags.
Yep.
And we'd pay for the ties, but the shit was free.
Right, yeah. So your parents were sort of vaguely overseeing this, or?
No, not really. Well, we would after school would go in and we'd bag manure, and then we'd stack it all up, and there'd be like a little honesty box, and they would get divvied up between myself and my sister, and I'll never forget, I went out and bought my very first motorbike.
Oh wow! Yeah.
With the money from chicken manure. So yeah, it was.
So it was
hard
reasonably
work.
Lucrative business to get a motorbike,
particularly around rose season. When the roses were coming right, then the chicken manure was the best thing for it. But I would also deliver big truckloads of manure.
Yep.
And I'd go with Dad in the truck, and we'd drop off the manure. And there was a place on Lincoln Road, and it sold port. I think it's still there, Mazarans. And we'll go in and drop off this big load of chicken manure, and then Dad, instead of getting paid in money, Dad would go in and choose a nice bottle of port.
Oh, nice.
And so I'd be with him, and he'd be like, right, for payment, we're going to get a port. And so back in the day, I was like, well, what's this currency port?
yeah. It's not usually the first choice of most kids.
That's it. So I didn't, my first interaction with money was not actual money. It was alcohol.
Yeah. Was money talked about in the house when you were a kid growing up?
Not a lot, actually. Not that I can remember playing 500 with mum a lot, or as a whole family, and we'd be playing 500 instead of money we'd be doing with matchsticks. But no, it wasn't. I saw that mum and dad worked extremely hard.
Yeah.
And every so often a new car would come home, and it would be like, wow, dad's brought a new car, and I know he's worked extremely hard for that.
So if anything, it's just that sense that if you work hard at something, good things will follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you recall about money in the family and things at the time? Was it tough? I guess, you've got a business there. There'd be good times and bad, I guess.
We've been brought up on a poultry farm. Chicken was probably the number one dish that would go into into our dinners. And mum would put a chicken on at about 10 o'clock in the morning and would eat that at about 6 o'clock at night with some potatoes and overcooked veggies. And I believe from my memory, we were on a holiday twice. We went to the Gold Coast once, and then we went to Stanmore Bay into a friend's caravan once, and that was our entire childhood. That was pretty much the only places we went. Yeah,
I guess a lot of money has to go back into the farm, and it's not a big cash flow business necessarily.
Yeah, and the thing is with the chickens had to be fed every single day. They had to be collected. There was if mum and dad weren't doing it, then we'd have to find other people to do it, and it was a different thing. There was a different thing back then to actually find someone to come on to the farm, live on the farm, look after the 75,000 chickens that were there.
Yeah. How's your relationship with chicken now as an ingredient?
Yeah. Surprisingly okay.
Yeah. It sounds like you mentioned, the chicken and overcooked veggies, the classic Kiwi sort of food staple food of the time. It doesn't sound like it was necessarily a foodie household that you were growing up in.
And it's funny because a lot of people ask me, they're like, was it your mum that got you, that gave you the passion to become a chef? Mum's cooking was great, but, we were on a poultry farm and mum just spent the time that she had to spend to get dinner onto the plate.
Yeah.
I'll never forget mum went and did a Chinese cooking class or course once, and she came home all invigorated after that, and she made wontongs.
Oh, yeah.
She made wonton soup for dinner, and it took her half the day, and Dad was not impressed in that.
Yeah. What era is this, 80s?
Yeah, must have been.
Yeah, I think I remember my mother doing, coming home, making fried rice.
That was it.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, Dad was not impressed that mum had spent half the day in the kitchen instead of working in the farm. So, mum's, she made traditional Dutch dishes excellently, and it wasn't until I started working in my first job that I kind of fell into chefing, really.
Sure, so it wasn't like it was a passion at school. You weren't doing sort of home ec or
I
food
excelled.
Technology or...
Yeah, I excelled at home. I enjoyed home ec. I enjoyed anything that involved using your hands, home ec, woodwork, metalwork. But I also enjoyed mathematics. So it was kind of it was a funny combination of subjects that I enjoyed.
Were you thinking about, a career path and making money at school, or was it just a case of taking what comes?
I kind of fell into working in hospo because there was a restaurant in Henderson called Tony's Vineyard, and there was back when Tony's was a big chain throughout Auckland.
Yep.
And it was a steak restaurant, steak and 3 veg. Very busy. My elder sister started working there front of house. My next sister started working there front of house. And I almost felt obligated to work in this restaurant.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't want to go into the front of house. I want to go into the kitchen.
Yep.
I want to go where the action is. So I started working at 14 on Friday nights after school in this kitchen. And when you go from working in a domestic kitchen where you're doing the dishes at home for like 6 or 7 people into working and scrubbing pots for 500, things change quite a bit, and the pressure ramps up, and before you know it, if you're not going fast enough, you get a bit of a boot up your ass from the head chef. But what that kitchen gave me was a tremendous amount of coming together. It was almost like you're going into battle every night. You had to work as a team to succeed, and if one of you went down, the other one would step in and help them out. And it was that togetherness that was like a drug, and I couldn't wait to go back.
So you really enjoyed that team aspect of a kitchen.
Totally. It was so energizing, and I looked up to these chefs as a dishwasher, and I was like, one day I want to be like them.
Yeah. And so when you effectively left school, did you just keep working in the industry?
I did. I back then you would do a trade cert, and so you would go to college, or AUT as it was, or ATI I think it was called back then, in town, and we would have one day, and we would go into into town and do a trade cert.
Yep.
So it was 1 day a week. And so that took about, I think because it was 1 day a week, it was about 4 years.
Yeah.
But we loved it because we could go into the big smoke because we were still working in Henderson. We'd go into the city and we'd be like, ooh. I don't think I excelled even at college, at Chef's College, because I was too busy looking out the window and all the big lights outside.
Right. Yeah. So it's still, you're driven to have a career, but you didn't necessarily see yourself going to the top as a chef or anything?
I always, even within my class, through those 4 years of trade cert, there were people within the class that were going on and competing on the world scene as, in culinary fairs around the world. And I looked up to them and was like, wow, they're just so much better than I am. At that time, I had a passion, but it was the hard work and determination not to fail that got me through that, I think.
What was your sort of first break in terms of getting into a top-class restaurant?
It actually came through a friend, and it was a restaurant in town called Kermit.
Oh, yeah.
He was working there, and there was a gap that had come up in the brasserie, and said, would you like to come in and work at Kermit? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And that was my first true working in a kitchen which had the structure of a commis chef and chef de parties and sous chefs and the head chef that actually had recipes that you had to follow and strict guidelines, and the pressure came with that. But I'll never forget this one dish. I thought I'd change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was a harpooker served with little baby squid. They were stuffed with a ratatouille and then they were crumbed and deep fried. And I thought I'd put a little bit of chili into the ratatouille inside the squid, just because I was like, it needs a little bit of spice. And I almost lost my job over just that one little tiny thing. I was like, jeepers, I'm in the real world here.
Yeah. Also, New Zealand in that era, chili was maybe a little risky.
That was it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just want to ask about the money, because did you start to notice that, when you get your first paycheck that you had a bit of money?
Money certainly
not a big paying career to start with.
Absolutely not. And I'll never forget at Kermit because of the time that I started there, the Americas, the whip around the world was there, and the brasserie was open 24 hours a day. And the person that was to replace me on my next shift never turned up, and then that carried on, and I did a 36-hour shift.
Wow.
And it ended up my mum ringing up the head chef going, you send my boy home, he's been working too hard.
Yeah.
And I looked at the pay pack after that, I was like, well, it hasn't really changed.
Yeah, so it wasn't like, you're not necessarily earning big bucks, B, you wouldn't have much time to spend it or to live life outside of work.
No, and more so when I got to the UK, because my true apprenticeship started when I started in the UK, in basement kitchens where you'd go in darkness and come out in darkness, and that was that day. And we got paid per month over there. I think I was maybe £360 a month, and that whole getting paid monthly thing where you actually had to go into a flat and then pay a month in advance, I didn't have that money, and there was a whole pile of periods in London where you'd simply run out of money, and you'd just be surviving on the food and the scraps that you'd get at work, and that was our life.
Wow. So you targeted, it was sort of like an OE, or did you target London as a way to advance the career?
I targeted London to become a chef.
Yep.
Because at that period, and we're going back 96, London was the mecca of food in the world.
Yep.
And I had a connection in a restaurant in Chelsea called Bluebird, who was the head chef. He was a Kiwi chap, and I had a connection, and I had a door that could have opened, or that did open for me to go in and work there, and so that's where I went to. Sure.
And so you really put your head down and worked there, right? So
totally.
Getting up to, what would you say is the height of success in London?
I was in London 6 years, and basically the only way to get a break and to get a bit of time off was to basically quit from your job, because every time you had a holiday booked, it would never ever happen. And I sacrificed a lot of travel, and pretty much all I saw was my flat, the inside of a tube, and then a night bus on the way home. And so many times I'd fall asleep on the night bus on the way home, and I'd wake up in the depot, because the driver hadn't even bothered to wake me up, and I was still up the top. And back then it was before cell phones, so you didn't actually know where you were. And so I had to go to bus stops and read the map and try and figure out where I was so that I could walk home, because I had no money for a cab. And so you work your way up in London, and there was, in around the 2000s, there was a restaurant that opened called Bank, and it was the busiest and most talked about restaurant opening in London. And I wanted to work there because I had heard that it was the busiest, it was the hardest, and if you survive here, then you'll basically, you'll make it anywhere. And so I started working there as a sous chef and made my way up as a senior sous chef. And so I was in charge at that point of 140 chefs. And I didn't see day, I didn't see night, I didn't see anything. My wife,
it's a blur.
My wife now, back then girlfriend B, she didn't see me, and I worked for an entire year in this restaurant, and the only day it closed was Christmas Day. And so we went to a friend's place for Christmas lunch, and he said, "Hey Mike, can you just check the turkey in the oven? I just don't know whether it's cooked yet." I said, "No problems." And I went into the kitchen, opened up the oven, and the turkey was completely raw. He hadn't even turned the oven on.
Yeah.
And something just broke inside me, and I felt sick. I couldn't stand. My girlfriend then, or B, took me home, and I slept for 4 days.
Wow, yeah.
Didn't wake up.
So that was kind of a trigger for the trauma of what you'd been through. Yeah.
Couldn't do any more.
Yeah.
And it's so full on, and you're surrounded by Gordon Ramsays, and you become Gordon yourself because otherwise you get trampled upon. And so at that time we stood back, and B and I said, "What are we doing here? This might be time for us to leave London." And we moved to Ireland.
Yeah, sure. And stayed in the industry, but...
So absolutely. Loved the industry. Had learnt so much from London, but our time had come to leave. And so we went from 500 seats, a 500-seat restaurant, which printed the menu twice a day. So it was a new menu twice a day for 500 people.
Wow.
Pressure's insane. To Ireland, where we worked in County Wexford, small luxury hotel, 44 people maximum a night, 22 rooms. Just B and I in the kitchen, and massive big gardens.
Yeah.
Massive big gardens that we had to, as long as the owner was like, as long as it's got potatoes in the dish, we're happy. Yeah. And it was a complete change.
Yeah.
Complete.
And obviously good for the mental health.
Extremely. Small little village, just had one pub.
Yep.
I had my mountain bike. I was happy. All the locals would kind of look at me going, "What's that crazy Kiwi doing on his bike in the forest again?" And loved every bit of it.
I got to ask, because we hear these stories, and you see shows like The Bear and things, and it does seem like an incredible grind to make it as a top chef. Just working around the clock, money not necessarily that good, but there's got to be something. You mentioned the team thing. There's got to be something that keeps that passion going and keeps people wanting to do it, right?
I think for me, whilst I was working in London, I was reading a cookbook or a book by Anthony Bourdain called Kitchen Confidential.
Yep.
And I was living his life there and then in London. And for me, what kept me going was to have my own restaurant.
Yep.
That's all I wanted. That's all we wanted, B and I, was to have our own restaurant. And so when we came back to New Zealand, early 2000s, we opened Moulton. And that was all of that hard work, all put into one little tiny room, serving 44 people a night.
Sure. So you targeted your return to New Zealand with the goal of getting that restaurant up and running.
Absolutely.
And obviously had some success with that.
Yeah, Moulton was great. And our end game was to have a place in the country.
Yeah.
But we couldn't go there straight away because A, we didn't have the finances, and B, you need to earn your name. You need to cut your graft as a chef, and become known as a chef. Because if you just open up a place in the country, it's destined to fail because nobody would know what's going on out there. You've got to
re-establish yourself in New Zealand, right? Another audience.
So that little restaurant in Mount Eden, the money that we saved in Ireland, working in Ireland because we couldn't spend it on anything because there was nothing to spend it on, that went into building this little restaurant.
Yep. Yeah. That sort of gets you to, success where you wanted to be as a chef. Tell me, how do you end up finding yourself on TV?
It was quite a funny story because it was a production company called Two Heads, and they had a concept of the food truck. So they had the truck and they had the concept around creating healthy food, and that was kind of all they had. And so they needed a chef to front it. And they rung the restaurant. On Saturday mornings, I was generally off on Saturday morning, and my wife answered the restaurant and said, it's such and such from Two Heads. Would wonder if Mike would be interested in hosting a TV show called The Food Truck. And B was like, yeah, sure, he'd love to do that. He loves being the centre of attention. And so I rung them up and they said, can you come in and see us? And I said, yep, perfect, no problems. What day? Wednesday would be great. And I said, perfect, no problems, we'll see you Wednesday afternoon. got off the phone. All of that Saturday night, I was like, yeah, got my own TV show. Look at this. Sunday, quite a few chefs would go out and hospo because, Sunday was our day off generally, and we'll play pool.
Yeah.
And we're all playing pool, and all these very well-known Auckland chefs are all like, hey, did you hear about that TV show called The Food Truck? I'm going in on Tuesday. Another one was going, I'm going on Monday. Another one was going, I'm going on Thursday. I was like, I thought it was just me.
So you're auditioning.
They had left that word out.
Yeah. But it obviously worked. Like some people are, like they say there's some people are naturals for TV. Some people can get there if they work at it. Some people never get there. You must have been fairly natural.
I was not natural,
right,
by any means. I was terrified because, I don't know, there's something about when there's a camera, everybody has to stop and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And the first thing I had to do was we had to go to McDonald's, we had to buy a cheeseburger. I had to then go back to the restaurant, recreate a cheeseburger as fast and as quickly and as tasty as I could, and then we would go out into the streets of Mount Eden with a cheeseburger and my burger and get the feedback from the public. And I couldn't handle feedback because I'm a chef. Like, What do you mean the McDonald's burger tastes better than mine? Do you have taste buds?
Yeah.
And I was bright red. I couldn't handle any sort of criticism. I couldn't handle being the limelight. I couldn't get my words out. I couldn't do anything. I was crap.
Right. But you got the gig. So
I don't know how.
Were you better than, I guess the others might not have been.
I think it's because we had a spare kitchen during the day and they were like, well, let's just use his kitchen and then we'll just work on him.
Yeah. So have you sort of taken a similar approach to sort of make, the hard work thing to TV, to actually sort of
absolutely
getting a handle on
absolutely
the art of presenting and whatnot?
I think the first episode of The Food Truck took us a month to complete, and that's 22 minutes of TV.
Yeah.
I don't think it was very profitable.
Yeah. So then you're juggling TV and a chef career.
Yep.
I read that you went through a really tough cancer battle in 2018. Did that force you to reassess your career and your attitude to what you were doing?
We had brought the farm out at Muriwai by then.
So you had, this was the other ambition, was to...
Very much so, was to bring our kids up on a farm like I was, but also to be able to produce our own food.
Yep.
On that farm that then went through a premise that was on that farm. And a lot of things happened at that period of time. I had quite a bad motorbike accident. I was going through a cancer treatment. My wife's father had just passed away and my best friend had just passed away.
Wow, it's crazy how some
things
just
it was incredible.
Hit all at once, yeah.
And the school was being built at the same time.
Wow.
So it was tremendous. And we came out the other side. We opened the school. And then COVID hit. Yeah.
And limiting your options.
That was it.
Opportunities to actually get people.
Very much so. And then we, but what happened when COVID hit is we were forced to stop. Yep. We were forced to shut the doors and go, there's nothing we can do about this. And it forced us to kind of just pull back a bit and breathe.
Yeah. Which is probably a good thing.
It was.
Coming out of it, did it sort of, you sort of come out fired up, ready to go?
Yeah, we had managed to finish a lot of jobs that we had started.
Yeah.
And we came out of it, but then unfortunately we went back into it again.
2 or 3 times.
And then we came back out, and then the anniversary floods hit, and then we came back out of that, and then Cyclone Gabrielle hit.
Well, yeah,
and that shut us down again.
It's been a tough period from your eye.
Extremely. And whilst we weren't so much affected by the storm, it certainly shut our business because nobody was going to Muriwai anymore, and we became a rescue kitchen. So we started producing food at the school, and then packaging it, and then sending it down to everyone that was out of their homes and living in cars and tents.
So it was a real community
extremely.
Effort. And look, before I jump into our quick fire questions, just let me know where it's at now.
Yep.
You're up and running with the cooking school, and
everything's established now. Everything is, it's 5 years older. The farm's 10 years. We would have been there 10 years next month. We would have been there. And the gardens are established. The school's starting to get back on its feet again after the Gabrielle. It takes a long time for these things to turn around, but we are still in hospo, and hospo is going through a hard time at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not something that everyone needs to have, and so we're working extremely hard on it, and still do. But it's slowly becoming a little bit more consistent.
Look, I want to do the quick fire questions. First up, and I think you might have touched on it in London, but what's the poorest you've ever been?
Yeah, definitely London. And it's funny because our flatmates, they were all in finance.
Yeah,
or my flatmates.
They're all earning big bucks.
They had every weekend off to Prague and Brussels and the Beer Fest every second weekend, and I was eating pasta and trying to eat at work, and I ended up buying a bike, and I cycled to work because it was cheaper than catching the tube
pass. Yeah. Yeah. So that's tough when it's highlighted by the money being spent around you.
Yes.
What would be the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
I would probably have to go right back to when I was shoveling chicken manure on the farm, and I walked into a showroom and I brought a brand new motorbike.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a KDX 200. It was bright green. I had worked extremely hard for that bike. And everyone thought that it was given to me or brought for me by my parents, but I had shoveled a lot of manure to get that bike. So I think I would have to rewind and go back to those days.
In terms of something that you really remember buying. Do you still buy bikes and ride bikes?
Mountain bikes. Off the motorcycles.
Yeah, you get to an age where you really don't want to fall off one.
Yeah, we don't bounce the same.
What sort of money personality would you describe yourself as? Are you a saver, a spender?
I'm a bit more risque. I think my wife, she's the one that looks after the purse strings, and I'm always looking to start new things, build new things, improve systems, and a lot of these cost money.
Yeah.
And there's a time to spend and there's a time not to spend, and I think right now, whilst the hospo is finding it a bit hard, or extremely hard, now's the time, I think, to spend and get ready for when it comes good.
Sure, yeah. We always ask, do you still buy lotto tickets? Do you imagine winning lotto? And if you imagine winning it, how much do you imagine winning?
I try not to be that person. I have a few friends that are always like, oh, when I win lotto, I can buy that. And I just never want to think like that, because I feel that you're just going to be on a roller coaster road constantly. If you want that, you go and work for it and figure out a way to get there, not through buying a ticket. But say if I won 10,000, or say if I won 10 million, to pay off my mortgage would be a great thing. Might even pay off a few friends' mortgages, and then I'll just go on a big trip with the kids.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What's the best financial advice you could remember being given?
I think for us in hospo, particularly in hospo, is systems are everything. You got to track every penny, and that comes right through to Eat Well for Less. So many families, we go into their homes, they have no idea what they're spending their money on. They have no idea how much money they're spending. So it's just have a slight system, just have a simple thing like an Excel sheet that you can note down where you're spending, what you're spending it on, and is it being spent in the right place? Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of the show, isn't it? That reveal when you shock them with what they're spending and what people. They're just, it's incredible. I would rather spend my money on buying a new apparatus that will make money. Yeah, being a new machine in the kitchen, or something that will go on to create money, than I would to spend it on something like a flash car or something like that. If you could go back in time, is the one thing you'd change about your career or your money habits that you've learned over the years? Maybe not get into hospital. What would I change? Hard to tell. Like, we've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. We've opened a restaurant that possibly didn't work, which we had to sell at a loss. Should we have opened that at the time? Who knows? Because if we hadn't opened it, you'd still be going, well, maybe we should open that restaurant. Yeah. There must be a lot of variables to the success or failure of something. Timing being a big one, right? Timing and a bit of luck, yes. A little bit of luck. Like, we were probably lucky to buy our farm out at Mirawai. Yep. It's a beautiful block of land, and that just came through word of mouth. So, luck is one thing. We were probably lucky to sell our house in Mount Albert when it was, the market was absolutely hot. But then we also worked hard for that house. Yeah, and you also have to recognise the moment. Yes. You get a lucky opportunity, you've got to grab it. Yep, and sometimes, if you're not enjoying something, get out of it before you really hate it. Yeah, that's a good advice. Is making money important to you, or a key driver, or is it more of a byproduct of success for you? I think it's a byproduct. I want the best for my kids. I want the best for my wife, B. I want us to retire. I probably will never retire. I'll always have something, but I want to really pull back on working 3 or 4 jobs, probably even next year.
Just do the work you want to do.
Absolutely. So, we're 37 years of hospo, it's taken its toll and the body's getting sore. So, for me, I want to have enough for B and I to actually enjoy all our hard work that we've put in for the last 30 odd years.
Think you'll stay on the tally if people still want you?
If they want me.
It's a good gig, right?
Yeah, but even TV's hard.
Yeah.
There's not the budget. I can remember, the food truck. I can remember Kiwi Living back in the day, and there would be 16, 17 people on set. Now with Eat Well for Less, there's like 3 of us.
As you say,
4 of us.
As you say, hospitality, TV, farming, the three very tough missions. Yeah. So when you look at New Zealand, and we sort of ask about the issues with inequality and food inequality, I guess is a big issue. If we could make you Prime Minister for a day, is there something you would like to do to try and address some of those issues?
I would love to bring more home ec back into schools.
Right.
I think our education around food has dwindled to a point where people think that KFC is healthy because it has chicken in it.
Yeah.
We need to get a better grasp on what we're spending our money on, how to spend better, what to spend better on, and then once we get it, what to do with it.
Because it's pretty fundamental to living well, isn't it? Both financially and, you got money and health.
Totally. Like, we released a kids' cookbook, Good From Scratch Kids, must have been 4 years ago. And I campaigned back then. I went to the Ministry of Health, I went to the Ministry of Education, because I wanted to do a food truck or set up some sort of a roadshow that could go around the country to all the schools, and it was a choreographed show that I would do to all these schools and get it out there and get the kids interested in food again through a fun way.
Yeah.
Not like ramming it down them going, you've got to make cheese scones. It makes food that they want. Make noodles, do smoothies, do stuff that they are interested in and that's relevant now. But I just got passed from pillar to post, and in the end, I just got brickwalled by it. So I would love to go back into schools and reinvigorate home economics in the way that we are living now.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if anyone in government is listening,
that's it. I just need a trailer, and I'm away.
Brilliant. Hey, Michael, thanks for being on Money Talks, and all the best with all the endeavours. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Money Talks. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzherald.co.nz, and you can read more from me at nzherald.co.nz. Follow Money Talks on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes available every Thursday. And if you are new to the podcast, you can check out our back catalogue with over 60 guests from across our seasons.